Hello everyone, welcome to the second session of Ethics Answer Writing Workshop. So what we have been doing last class, we have discussed around 6 questions and how to brainstorm on these questions, how to develop different dimensions, ethical arguments on this question. This has been our primary focus in the last class. So in this class, I hope you have written the 6 questions. How was today's paper? Comment in the comment section what was the level of paper, were you able to apply some of these frameworks we learned earlier, and we will see some of the new frameworks today. Duties of a civil servant we have already discussed in last class. CAB approach for attitude, stakeholder approach, emotional intelligence, how to tackle questions related to emotional intelligence, hierarchical framework and different DOPT manual, how DOPT manual is approaching different kind of ethical values in administration, life cycle approach. All these different approaches we are going to see today, and we have some of the definition kind of questions also in the end of the paper. I hope you have attempted this paper quite easily compared to yesterday's paper, and these are some of the various types of conclusion that is you can use in the paper, concluding with an example, concluding with quotation in the conclusion, concluding integrating a current affairs events that is relevant to the exam, concluding using a government scheme, especially the Mission Karma Yogi scheme. You can utilize in different questions, in different aptitude, different types of question in ethics. Other you can also conclude with a international best practice. That can be national as well as international best practice. So these are like just an outline of different types of conclusion, how you can approach conclusion section of the question. So let's go to the today's major question, today's major part of the discussion. That is, let's start with the first question. Read the question, then we will discuss how to approach this. Attitude is an important component that goes as input in the development of human beings. How to build a suitable attitude needed for a public servant. So this is the question we have. So how you are going to attempt this? If you are watching online, you can comment how we are going to approach this question. Yeah, so this is that kind of a question where we have a statement. We have a statement, then a question. What do you have to do in such questions? Statement can be your introduction. It is not necessary the statement can be your introduction, but give due relevance to, give due respect to the statement. Make it an extended introduction, around just half of the first page you can spend for substantiating the statement, or spend at least 3 to 4 arguments on what exactly is the statement given. Then move on to the question, which should occupy at least more than 1 page. That is, more than 60-70% of your answer should be exactly what is asked. 6, 7, 8 points you can generate here. Then a conclusion. That should be your general approach for questions regarding where there is a statement given and completely different question is being asked. So in this question we have a statement. Attitude is an important component that goes into input as in the development of human beings. So how you can introduce the answer? One standard way of introducing ethics answer is introducing by definition. Attitude is a person's overall outlook, mindset and disposition towards a particular object, person or situation. A concept which influences their thoughts, feelings, behavior related to it. So as I told you yesterday, whenever you are using definition kind of introduction, we have seen in different questions yesterday also. Adapt it to the requirement of the question. Adapt it to the what exactly is asked in the question. These modulations you have to make. Even we have seen the case of integrity. If a question is about integrity, identify what type of integrity is being asked. Is it about an integrity at the personal level? Is it about an integrity at the administrative level? Is it about talking about integrity at the institutional level? Whichever level is the question, what is the attitude of the question? What is the subject matter of the question? Regarding that, make your modulations. Another approach, another add-on or value addition element you should keep in mind is whenever you are giving a contextualized contextualized introduction, or whenever you are giving a trivial kind of introduction, always try to bring one example. When we define attitude, it is always makes sense to provide one particular example. For example, positive attitude towards education, especially we will see in the middle class in India. Middle class in India have high value, high weightage for education. They even value education beyond other aptitudes like entrepreneurship attitude, or risk-taking attitude, or creative attitude, or artistic attitude. Beyond that, they focus more on the educational aspect of their children. So, what is the outcome of it, or what is the implications of this? Is that it lead to better investment in education, especially the investment in education of the girl children. We already seen that in higher education sector, more girls are getting enrolled than boys, especially in the medical sector and all. So all these one attitude of the middle class is also a contributing factor or a catalytic factor towards gender equality. You can give one certain example of attitude leading to certain outputs that will make the introduction complete. Going ahead, what dimensions you can use here? The first is connecting two aspects, attitude along with development of human beings. So you can go with dimensions. You can open the answer by opening the dimensions of development of human beings. What constitute development of human beings? It can be physical development. Physical development means health. Physical development means medical care. Physical development, access to insurance, all this comes under the physical development aspect. It can also be cognitive development, intellectual aspect, analytical aspects. It can also be emotional aspect, emotional intelligence. You can bring in the idea of emotional intelligence, stress management. It can also be social development. It can also be professional development in certain areas, or creative or artistic development. The approach what we are doing is, we have two part of the question. We have done in this similar approaches in many of the questions in 2023 questions also, especially that question regarding moral integrity and professional efficiency. What exactly we were doing? The question is asking about a certain definition of a certain term in the context of something else. So what is the context? You open dimensions of that, then apply it into the different conceptual understanding or the terms you have to define. So here attitude is something that need to be explored in the context of human development or development of human beings, to open the dimensions of the human development of human beings and try to interpret attitude. That can be the easy approach to this question. So attitude towards healthcare, influence one behavior related to diet, exercise, self-care. You might have seen my multiple videos of Virat Kohli, who propound vegan diet, he propound healthy diet and all these practices. Open-minded attitude encourages individuals to explore ideas, concept and intellectual growth. All the industrial revolution, if you look at the development of ideas throughout the world, one major contributing factor has been the open-minded attitude that has developed in the Europe in 18th century. Even in India, Indian Renaissance, the constitution, we speak about modern ideas of the constitution, equality, fraternity, right to life and what more. But the seeds of these ideas, all these been laid in the 19th century by different reformers like Raja Ram Mohan Roy. So what they have been doing, they are creating the attitude of open-mindedness in the society. You can give any of the example like Vasco da Gama. If you want to foreign examples, you can give Indian Renaissance examples also. Positive attitude towards self-awareness, better stress management. If you are under emotional stress, if you are aware of this, there is scope for taking precautionary measures. There is scope for making medical attention. But if you are somebody who is not even aware of your worsening state of emotional state, then there is even no scope for taking any XYZ measures. Similarly, positive attitude towards interpersonal relationship, empathy, communication, formation of meaningful social relations. Growth mindset, you can see. What is growth mindset? That means you can think about ideal, what you want to achieve or what is your potential. Either you can think that your potential is already bounded. It is this much is your potential and you cannot go beyond that. Otherwise, you can think that your potential is something that is dynamic, that changes depending on how much effort, how much interest, how much involvement you are putting in certain aspects. If you put in more aspects, your potential can expand. So growth mindset says that your potential has no practical limits. If you put in more focus into it, you can expand beyond that. If you want to get more marks, give more focus into it. Pay more attention into minute details. So you can give examples like Dhirubhai Ambani or any successful businessman like Steve Jobs. Positive attitude towards self-expression promotes artistic skills and creativity. Rabindranath Tagore example. Shantiniketan school, you can bring in the example. What is the idea of Shantiniketan school of thought? The idea is it focuses not just on the cognitive development. It focuses not just on the interpreter or studying job education for getting certain jobs. It focuses on overall development of the individual. And overall development of individual does requires emotional strength. It does requires artistic values. So it gives due importance to all these factors. Sir, why is negativity attached to the word attitude? Very good question. Yeah, so why is negativity attached to word attitude? I don't think this question per se has any negative connotation. Depending on context, what kind of attitude you are speaking, you can have positive or negative meaning to the attitude. As such, attitude has no such value. It's quite a value neutral term. As such, it doesn't has any positive or negative connotation. So yeah, going into different further aspects of this question, how to build a suitable attitude needed for a public servant. So we have a change in context here. First context, we were speaking more about development of human being. So here we have a public servant. We have already seen two different frameworks that can be applied for a public servant. One is the duties of the public servant. One is a life cycle approach of the public servant. From starting of his career to the retirement, you can see what kind of how attitude plays at different levels. Or you can think on different dimensions of public service, different duties that public servant is doing. For example, enforcement of law. For example, formulation and implementation of policies. For example, resource management. For example, people management. For example, office management, leadership. All these elements will come into picture. You can approach this answer on multiple ways. But for the sake of understanding a new framework, what we are going here is, we are going along the components of attitude. Whenever you study attitude, you study across three dimensions: cognitive aspects of attitude, affective aspects of attitude, and behavioral aspects of attitude. So on these basis, cognitive, what exactly is cognitive aspects of attitude? It based on ideas, it based on knowledge. If these elements are new ideas or new knowledge about something, that is leading to a certain attitude, that we relate it as cognitive. Affective component is more or less, it is relating with the emotions of the people, whereas behavioral component associated with the day-to-day activities, habitual, routine, all these aspects will be taken into consideration of behavioral aspects. So on these three dimensions, we can think almost any question related to attitude. Mostly questions comes on this line: what kind of attitude civil servant should have, how you can develop right attitude for the civil servant, how attitude impacts positive or negative developments. All these kind of questions you can apply this standard approach. Let's see how it is being approached in this question. So we are first concerned with the cognitive approach, that is the knowledge component. So in knowledge component, understand the responsibility. Like civil servant should understand what exactly is his responsibility. When we speak about civil servant, his responsibility is not simply following the law. Its responsibility goes much beyond in applying the law in letter and spirit. His responsibility is about interpreting the law to the best interest of the people. His responsibility is about implementing law so that the most needy person are served the best. So the exact responsibilities of the civil servant, that should have a clear understanding. The civil servant should have a broader understanding on his role in different bureaucracy, in role in civil society. That goes much beyond a simple position or legal responsibilities of the civil servant. So understanding the responsibility is the first part of having right attitude. That will bring people first attitude into the civil servant. That will promote For example, you can connect it with mission karma yogi, rule based to role based approach. Similarly, understand the rights of citizen. Once the role of civil servant in understand, then citizen also has right. You might have seen when protest is happening. It is the police officer, it is the district administrative officer. These guys are the guys who take the major call for handling the protest. Whether firing should be done, whether other kind of tear gas or water gun, or what kind of tools should be used. All these decisions are being taken by these civil servants, or you can say the bureaucratic authorities. So how should they approach it? Even in protest, if it is a peaceful protest, citizens should have the right to exercise their rights, raise their voice against the government or certain policies or certain actions taken by the bureaucracy. So understanding the rights as well as the limits of rights of the people, under what circumstances the bureaucracy can step in and check on certain rights of the people. All these elements, a clear understanding will guide right attitude of the civil servant towards handling different aspects. Similarly, a responsive to local issues and demands. Many a times we speak about a democracy that is separated from the people, or a democracy that is more of a that shows more of a bureaucratic attitude than a democratic attitude. So this aspect also you can bring into your answers. How you can more democratize the bureaucracy, how you can bring more elements of democracy into the bureaucracy, and how it can be done when bureaucracy is sensitive to the local demands. And what exactly constitute local demands? Local demands can be specific demands in the rural areas. Local demands can be specific demands in the tribal areas. All this comes into picture. If bureaucracy is in a position to handle all of this, or encapsulate all of these developments, all of these sensitivities, then we can say we are going towards a shift from bureaucratic attitude to democratic attitude. Learn about tribal values, customs before implementing Forest Rights Act. You might have seen Supreme Court judgment last year on Forest Rights Act. Around 2 lakh people has to be relocated out of the forest areas. So even when we bring in Forest Rights Act in 2006 with the objective of protecting the rights of people living in the forest, who has been for generations living in the forest. Now this same law has lacunas in implementation. The same law, if you look, many of the state level, the level of implementation is lagging. How the identification of the processes is making too complex that many of the people, despite having tribal origin or living in the forest, cannot produce their required documents. So what is the consequence of all of these? When we speak about implementing law in letter and spirit, the spirit is gone out of the law. We are trying to implement the law in the letter, and it leads to more problems for the people, more troubles for the people. So all these elements you can bring into your answers. So this is all we are speaking about cognitive components. Now we can speak about affective component, like encourage compassionate governance models. Digitization of public services. We have seen the digitization of PDS system. So digitization has its own benefits. It brings in better practices, it checks leakages, it brings in corruption control measures. But despite having all these benefits, where PDS is lagging, where PDS is creating issues is when the most needy person are left out of the services. When the most needy person who require the different kind of benefits or support of the state, they might not have the access to digital systems. They might not have the knowledge to incorporate themselves under the new digital framework. So who are being left out is the most needy people. So these kind of sensitivities you should keep in mind. Emotional intelligence training that can be provided to the civil servant officers at all different levels of their career. Positive usage of social influence, persuasion. You might have seen many of the recent bureaucrats, including the IAS officers, encouraging or very active in using social media. So it can also be used in a positive way to bring in right attitude, to bring in more connect with the people. All these examples you can bring into picture. These are how the key takeaway from all this talk is how you develop different dimensions for a question related to attitude. think on these 3 lines. Some of the behavioral example, at least you can generate 2 points on each of these lines. You will get enough points to complete meet the demand of the question. At least for 3 or 4 point, you have decent examples that will suffice all the demand of the question. Now the later part, promote probity at all levels, rewards and recognition system for punctuality, for accountability, for ethical conduct. Prioritize problem solving skills, provide flexibility in work culture. For example, implement work from home provisions, etc. All these elements you can bring into picture. The future of good governance lies in institutionalizing these mechanisms that shape positive attitude right from the grassroots level by upholding certain values like compassionate, ethical, competent and connected governance. So this is like you are giving certain kind of a vision. We already speak about what way forward, what approaches should be taken so as to bring in different changes in the attitude or creeping positive development attitude for a public servant. So in conclusion, we are coming with a futuristic vision that focuses on compassionate, ethical, competent and connected governance. So that's all about first question. Let's move ahead. So go through the second question. If you haven't go through it, post the video here. Then brainstorm what you are going to write. Then continue the video. Yeah. So let's read the question once. What does accountability mean in the context of public service? What measures can be adopted to ensure individual and collective accountability of public servants? So, so this is kind of a definitional type of question. How you are going to approach this question? What are different parts of this question? We have seen many of the definitional kind of questions. In that too, some of the question coming a little bit way out of the syllabus area, especially related in the 2023 paper. We have seen a question on coercion. We have seen a question on influence, undue influence. We have seen a question on moral integrity. We have seen question on professional efficiency. So multiple kind of definitional questions. Social capital, there was one question. Lot many questions are coming on this aspect. You should have a definitely planned how you are going to approach this. So you have an account. What does accountability mean? A direct definitional statement in the context of public services. So again, what should be your approach? You can make your introduction. The first part of the answer, that is define accountability here. Now since this is the 50% of your question, you should give simply defining one line, that is not enough. You should go a little bit more. You should explore different dimensions of public service. So in this context, you have to define accountability. So think on different dimensions of public services. 5, 6, 4, 5 dimensions if you can open. What does accountability mean in each of these dimensions? Or you can think stakeholders of public service. Who can be the stakeholders of public service? There can be government, there can be civil servant, that is permanent bureaucracy. There can be citizens, there can be communities, there can be other private NGOs. All these are part of public services. So public service, you can think few dimensions, and what does accountability mean to each of these dimensions of public service. This will give you 4 or 5 points to substantiate the first part of the answer comprehensively. Now moving into second part, what measures can be adopted to ensure individual and collective accountability of public servants? So measures you have to write. So if you possible, you can even think of dividing the answer. On one part you can write about individual responsibilities or individual measures that should be taken, or collective responsibility measures you can 3 points, 4 points here, 4 to 5 points here. That will be suffice the demand of the question. Then an introduction and conclusion. Introduction most probably will be definition of accountability. So let's move ahead. Yeah. So accountability in public service, as I already told, everywhere you are using the introduction, modulate it depending on the context you are defining it. So accountability in public service means what? Public service means what? Government officials and public servants are answerable to their actions, decisions, behaviors and policies. Accountability is all about answerability to your answer. Answerability to your actions. That is accountability all about. Now we define it depending on what is the context. If it is wrote in the context of corporate governance, it will have a different meaning. If it is spoken in the context of public administration or civil services or public services, it will have a different connotation. They have an obligation to act transparently, ethically and responsibly since they are entrusted with public resources and authority. Now how we are going to address the first part of the answer. Key aspects of accountability in the context of public service. As I already told, what constitutes the public service? Public service is about government. Public service about public servants. It's about citizens, elected officials, NGOs, private sector, oversight or regulatory bodies. Now to all these segments, all these class of people, what does accountability mean? So this interpretation is only what you have to make. For government, accountability means review of policies and conduct. Elections, what elections are reviewing? Elections are upholding the political accountability of the government. But that is not enough. We need for every organization, for every ambit of the government, for every policy the government is coming up with. What CAG is doing? CAG is upholding the financial accountability of the government or different kind of spendings done by the government. So all these elements you try to bring into your picture. Taxpayers' money should be used wisely to ensure that that is the meaning of accountability for government. Similarly, what is the meaning of accountability for civil servants? To act in a transparent way, to democratize bureaucratic practices, promoting values like people first attitude. So all these constitute what is accountability for civil servant. Prevent corruption and misconduct, that is the most important aspect of accountability. For citizen, what is accountability? Having access to information, that is what kind of information? Policy related information. For post the RTI, Right to Information Act of 2002, what we have the current status is, we have citizen have the right to go and ask government or any other public authority whatever information regarding the policy is. How much money is being sent, how much is the current spending, what is the future spending, all these are data should be openly available to the people. So citizens' responsibility is to access this information for the good of governance. Raise concern if there is any discrepancy or if there is any issues with the conduct of the government. Promote participative governance. We might have seen the social audit aspects in Manrega, which has huge potential if it can be expanded into different urban governance mechanisms. Similarly, elected officials, what does accountability mean? They represent the interest of the people. Check abuse of power. Similarly, NGOs will be allotted fund either from the foreign countries or foreign charity organizations or religious organizations or through the implementation of certain policies by the government. So what they have to do, they have to make sure that the fund is used effectively for that certain purpose itself. So that is what accountability means for an NGOs. Private sector, how private sector is part of a public service? Majorly they are part of public service through different partnerships with the government. PPPs are the most common type of partnership you can see related to this infrastructure development. So what does accountability mean there? Meeting contractual obligations, prevent cost overruns, prevent delays, conflict of interest, check conflict of interest. All these are dimensions of private sector accountability for private sector. Similarly, oversight bodies, what is their accountability means? Maintain rule of law, being impartial and free from political influence. So these are different dimensions of accountability in the context of public service. Moving ahead, the major part of the question, what measures to ensure individual and collective accountability of the public servants? So this is the hierarchical approach we are going to show in these questions. So we have seen different kinds of approaches. This approach is majorly taken from the DOPT material. I will show you the end of this question what exactly is the material. You can download this material from the website. It's a not very big document, a 45-page document, and any student of ethics should compulsorily go through it, at least just to try to grab the different meaning of different ethical terms that is given there, like integrity, accountability, responsibility, people first, commitment. All these different terms have been explored there. Try to at least grasp the core meaning of these terms from the DOPT manual material. So measures, from there we have developed the hierarchical approach. What the hierarchical approach is all about? It's all about thinking in a particular way. When we are speaking about accountability, think about this is a whole structure. And in the whole structure, at the lowest level, you have the group D employee. What does accountability mean for a group D employee? Or if you want to increase accountability of a group D employee or lowest level employee in an organization, what measures can be taken? At least think on 1-2 measures. Now, a mid-level employee, the responsibility changes, the prospects changes. Now, how you can ensure the accountability of a mid-level employee? Develop 2 points on this regard. At management level, what steps you can do? At policy level accountability, what measures you can do? At leadership level, what measures you can do? This should be your general approach to this answer. If you can generate 2 points on all these regards, you will meet the demand of the question. So what you have done, see here, entry level measures, how you can ensure entry level employees having high level of accountability, have a clear job description and performance matrices. These is the key responsibilities, and on these matrices you measure what is the output of this employee. This should be pre-communicated. This should be clearly objectively communicated to the employee. Code of conduct, have a clear code of conduct and have mechanism to enforce the clear code of conduct. Whistleblower protection, merit-based promotions and penalties should be there. Mid-level employee, the responsibility, the prospects changes. Transparency policy, internal audits, independent ethics commissions, training programs, limits on gifts or lobbying to check corruption. So these are aspects of accountability for a mid-level employee. For a management level employee, external audits, rotation across departments so that cross-sectional skills can be developed. Public hearings and surveys, especially in environmental related case studies or policies. Citizen oversight committees. At policy level, what measures can be taken? Merit-based promotions. Transparency law like strengthening of Right to Information Act. Whistleblower, strengthening of Whistleblower Protection Act. Limits on post-retirement jobs. Leadership measures, what can be done? Code of ethics enforcement, transparency decision making, responding to grievances and media scrutiny, independent anti-corruption agencies. All these are different dimensions you can explore in this question. It is not necessary you should write all these points, but what should be the key takeaway is the how you approach the question. Think on different hierarchies of civil services, then try to generate at least 1 or 2 points on all this regard. That will service the demand of the question. Going ahead, thus accountability is not a one size fit for all solution. It requires multifaceted approach that addresses every level of public service from entry level officials to leaders at the top level. So on this note, you conclude this answer. So this is the DOPT material competency dictionary I am speaking about. You can just search it online and you can get it online, around 45 pages. So these are different levels of differentiation that is provided in this DOPT material. You can see how integrity is being defined. We discussed this in the last class. Meaning of integrity changes across different dimensions. Personal integrity definition is quite different from administrative integrity development definition. So this should be the exact definition you should use in the context of integrity, in the context of administration or public services. Integrity means consistently behave in open and transparent manners, honors one's commitment and work to uphold public service values. This is the contextual definition of integrity in terms of public administration or public services. So here you can see different level 1, level 2 and level 5. The similar hierarchical classification is done from starting from the entry level to the leadership position, what measures should be taken to uphold integrity. So this approach is also already taken from this material. It's already available in the internet. You should go through this material at least once. Going ahead, so this is the third question. Go through the question once, then we will continue the discussion.